Mic check, 1, 2. Today's podcast is brought to you by Jumpseat Training. Jumpseat Training is hosting its first online event May 16th. Check it out at jumpseattraining.com, where you can find information on the online Aggressively Positive. But until then, let's roll that federal cue. Roll it! Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Jumpseat Radio, the podcast that happens to have a guy on the telephone that has his own podcast. No introductions are needed. What's up, Pip?
What's happening, Ryan? I guess that's a new way to introduce me. I have my own podcast, all I think 6 episodes of it that we've done.
It's like when your kids go away to school and you're so proud of them. Dude, your show so far has just been phenomenal. You've knocked it out of the park so far. Huge fan.
Thank you. It's been a challenge. Everything in life seems like a challenge these days, like a new challenge. So
yeah, but your message, it's just so solid. And I think that as you go along as the host, you'll keep evolving as the host. But your guest lineup has been fantastic.
Yeah, that last one with Sin and I have been friends for a while now, and I was planning on having him as a guest anyway.
Right.
And then just with what's going on and with his consistent message of his own brand of positivity, and it's definitely not for everyone.
Right.
But it's always resonated with me. And in these strange days, it definitely, I think, resonated with a lot of other people.
And what Pip is talking about is right now we are still in the middle of COVID-19. What is it? What is today? April 28th of 2020. If you guys are listening to this podcast in the future, which Pip, I will recommend that when you start podcasting, that you need to realize that some people don't start with episode number 126. It just blows my mind. I got an email the other day that says, Ryan, I love your podcast. I'm like, cool. Would you listen to the one with Pip? He's like, no, I'm on episode 3. And I was like, ooh.
It's weird too, because when you record, you try to make it very general, but Of course you talk about things happening in life now.
Yep.
And I think sometimes I'm like, oh man, we said that, and that was like a week ago, but you don't really think about, how where you're at years later, people are still listening because they're not getting their news from podcasts. They're listening to the message, and it's a challenging thing to really keep in mind when you're doing these. I commend you on it for sure.
Dude, it's crazy though, because I got the message like, well, I was like, oh really? What was I doing in episode number 6? They're like, well, you just went back to Canada, or you just did that, or you just did that. It's like, man, maybe I can't go back and listen because I almost find them cringeworthy, because it's like, it's just like everything that you do, you're going to keep getting better. I upgraded the audio, I've upgraded this, and then it's like, I think I've become a better host. But it's so neat to hear those people listening back then. I really appreciate the listeners going back there. And really, I keep dabbling in YouTube. I keep dipping my toes in the water of the YouTubes. But now Heather and I sat around and watched some of these YouTubers. They video everything in their life.
It's crazy.
Not just for YouTube, but could you imagine going back to little Pips and say, here you are when you blah, 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 blah. And their whole life was on video. That's crazy.
I definitely do that because, I use Facebook for that because of Facebook memories. When you see it on YouTube, that's a whole different level of just, and I guess I'm getting into it too because, the Size Up is on YouTube, so we record to that. The National Fire Radio platform is getting more YouTube-y just because of the times. I guess if that's a word, but we're actually going to do something with them this Friday. We're going to put out a live 555 workout on the National Fire Radio platform, which will be interesting.
From National Fire Radio.
Yeah, he's not working out. It's going to be Pip from the Size Up and 555 Fitness with his crew, but we're doing a takeover. I guess they're called takeovers.
Oh, nice.
But it's cool to be able to use that. And, you teach aggressively positive. I've always tried to have a positive mindset. It doesn't always work. And like we talked about the last time I was with you, it's peaks and valleys, man. Today we're getting a flyover by the Blue Angels and
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds, yeah. And listen, the map looks like it's coming right over my house, but who knows? But me and my boys are going up on my roof. I'm taking the 2 main Pips on the roof for a little danger ladder training. No roof ladder necessary. We'll figure this out. We're gonna ride the beam. But we're gonna try to check this out, right? Like this is some cool stuff. That's like a huge positive thing. And even if they don't fly over, who cares? I get to hang out on my roof on a gorgeous New Jersey spring day with my boys.
So for everyone listening to this podcast, we know what kind of firefighters the young Pips are being trained to be. He's training them. He's going to skip the engine. We're going straight to the truck work here, boys.
Get right up on that roof, man.
Goes to the roof. Hey, that's why I want to talk to you today, Pip. Is I've gotten a couple chances. I've got a couple chances to review some fires, from some folks around the country. They've asked me, say, "Hey, Ryan, can you review this fire?" And it seems like we get distracted. I mean, I know it's hard to believe, but with my ADD self, it seems like we get distracted a lot on the scenes of fires from what our primary tasks are. And it kind of goes to speaking about you taking the Pips up to the roof is, if you're the first due engine company, even if you've got entrapment, if you've got the ladder company coming up your hind end, you need to go get water on the fire. I mean, it's like I reviewed three different fires from the West Coast, Midwest, and the East Coast where we've lost our way on the fire scene. And dare I say, this is going to suck saying it, one of them was my fire. So it's like when I say that we're reviewing them, I review mine just like hopefully everyone out there reviews yours. How do you keep that focus in on your primary responsibility? So, and I'll give you an example. You're an engine company lieutenant today, and they come back and say, we've got entrapment up there. Well, you're not the ladder company today. You're the engine company. And putting water on the fire is most important for you. How do you keep that focus while things are going to heck in a handbasket?
So a lot of that comes back to, well, the first part to me is knowing your department, right?
Ooh.
I feel like we've gotten in the fire service, and I actually think we've crested this, and now we're coming into something new again, where just because someone said something, right? They taught something, they said something, didn't mean you had to go and do that, regardless of what department they worked for, or what magazine they wrote for, how many they keynoted FDIC. Well, just because they said do it this way, well, guess what? That works for them on that day. You have to do what works well for your department. Right. And that's going to be different for everybody. You know, it's even if you want to coin that phrase, the hit it hard from the yard. Listen, if you pull up on a 2-man engine company and there's no one else coming,
we're dumping it from the road, baby.
You're going to dump it from the road. That's all you got, right? That's your tactic. Now, for me, where I work, that doesn't necessarily work all the time because of the way we operate. So a lot comes down to what works for you and knowing your department. I know that where I work, we have 3 engines and a truck and occasionally a rescue, right? I know who's coming behind me, a relative area of where they're coming from, and what their job is going to be. Now, that same fire you spoke about, so I am currently assigned an engine company lieutenant. If that fire was in my first due, the truck will literally be a few minutes behind me, if not seconds, because we roll out of the same house. Right. So I tell my guys, don't even worry about the irons, right? What did I tell you in fire school? Get off the engine with a tool in your hand. So your tool is the hose.
That's right.
And I've seen this where guys come off the first due with irons in their hands, and when they get to grab the hose, they drop the irons on the ground. So that's my tactic for that, right? We're using the hose. However, we have another engine company in my city that is a bit more remote. Right. So if I get that fire with entrapment, I got to figure out what we're doing, because that truck is a solid 5 minutes away. And at peak traffic time, it could be 10 minutes away, 7 to 10 minutes away. So in those reviews, that's what it really comes down to.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's almost like you as the lieutenant, me as the captain, or whoever's riding that right front seat's got to make the adjustments. And it's easy to Monday morning quarterback sitting in the comfort of my office over here.
Oh, of course.
But in combat situations. But I mean, even when I was Monday morning quarterbacking my fire, I said, what in the freak was going through your head right then? McFly. But I mean, I really think it takes an honest evaluation of your performance, not nitpicking it to death, but hey, here's my positives, here's my negatives, and here's my positives for mine. We got so wrapped up going down the front door that we should have went around the side door. And it's like having that communication and making yourself available to the communication, I think will help keep us on task as well. Especially if your second due engine crew gets on there and says, hey, Pip, what are you freaking doing? Hey, let's go over here and hit it from the Charlie side. We have to have enough, I don't know if this is a word or not, humility and enough trust in our other officers to make that adjustment. Yeah, I know I can't spell it. It's HU humility. and say, hey, listen, maybe you've seen something I haven't seen. And that is not, sometimes there's an ego involved in that as well.
Oh my God, yeah. There's so much ego involved in critiquing yourself. You know, if I go back, I was an acting officer, second due to a fire, with exposure problems, because that's my
New
city.
Jersey.
It's New Jersey. It's exposure problems, right? First due was up on the second floor. Second floor was rocking, right? So you would think my assignment would be hydrant, which we left a guy at the hydrant.
Right.
And my chief's yelling, you know, get an exposure line, you know, get the blitz in the alley now, because now it's coming out the windows and we're going to lose 2 houses instead of 1. We had just got blitz attack monitors around that time, or maybe we got them a year earlier, but we hadn't really used them a lot yet. I pulled 200 feet of blitz line. I had, this was in the college area, I had college students helping me because my third man was at the hydrant. My driver was working on the hydrant connection with the other driver. So I grabbed some college kids. I'm like, let's go. We pulled 200 feet, a 3-inch. I dropped the monitor, and I kid you not, I dropped the monitor, about 12 feet from the engine pump panel. Right. And I don't know, it's what you did. You pulled a pre-connected line.
Right.
And so what do we, and that fire, we kept it to 1 building. So, hey, we got that, but it was a 3-bottle fire. I mean, like, we eventually found the victim way into the incident. Yeah. It was a bad fire. A lot of, compartmentalization in the house, a lot of modifications done. So really bad house. But after that fire, we do a critique. And you know what I noticed, and I said about myself, because I'm the guy who did it. I'm like, I will never pull 200 foot of 3-inch attached to a blitz line again if I only need 12. And since that fire, we have done that same tactic numerous times, and that line has been broke. It may have made 100 feet once. I think it made 100 feet at the fire from my summer fire that got blasted all over the internet. But you break it because I learned from that, and I'm able to teach other people that. So now my rookies come on, and one of the things that I teach them is like, this line is going to get broke unless we need 200 feet of it, you know?
You know, that's where I insert my Mattydale reference there, right? Mattydale, New York ruined the fire service because they were the first people to put cross-laid pre-connected lines on fire trucks.
Oh,
They did. Up until then, you always broke. And I mean, it's so funny that you say that, because we had a similar experience. Now, don't make fun of me, because remember where I live at. We had a wicked brush fire with a 20-mile-per-hour wind going up the hillside. And us city folks
it's not supposed to do that, right?
No,
it doesn't go.
No, it's not. And we got there, and the first arriving engine company, I swear my hands, God is my witness, he was completely surrounded by fire. So, I mean, first thing I started seeing is like, I fell into a burning ring of fire. Because he was literally in a burning ring of fire. It's like, Ryan, we need to get ahead of this, because there's structures up there, there's structures down there. I said, what do you want to do? He says, we need to stretch. Roger that. This is not a short stretch. He's like, yeah. I was like, I'm going to guess it's 400. Nope. 550. 550 feet. So we stretched, we carried 400-foot pre-connects on this particular engine for alley stretches and apartment loads. So we stretched to 400, and we were 150 short. So it's just neat to go back to that process where you shorten it. That particular call, we lengthen it. And now, of course, I didn't ever realize that by the time you fill the hose, because the first 200 feet was 2.5, we'd already used a half a tank of water. But, you know, that's because I'm assigned to a truck company right now, right? But, I mean, I really think that what we're talking about is staying on task, staying on focus, that you need to prepare for those variables. And then you also need to stay in your lane. We talk about it with aggressively positive and staying in your lane around the firehouse. But you need to stay within your SOPs. And I'm going to throw another caveat out there, Pip, is if you go through a curveball during the operation, you need to announce it on the radio that we've done a curveball away from standardized operations. And this happened on the West Coast. It's like an engine company was making a stretch. Oh, crap, there's a victim.
Yep.
Hey, listen, victim take priority. Hey, we're done. But get on the gosh darn radio and say, hey, this is engine 1 command. We've got a victim. We can't get water on the fire right now because we're moving the victim. And I really think, if you deviate from your operational specifications, you need to announce it, because what's going to happen to the fire is going to keep growing.
It's going to get worse. Yeah, nobody's going to be doing their job. They're going to be, and even so, when I had my a rescue last year, you know, we found this woman all of 10 feet from the door.
On the engine
so
company.
I have a 4-man truck company. So 2 guys work outside vent together. Operator and the 4th man are working outside vent or whatever another task is. But once we brought her out, I had to get on the radio to those two and tell them, you got to get inside and continue the search, because the engine was still putting out the fire, and I only searched a
10 feet
of the apartment.
I got 10 feet.
Yeah, like I got
10 feet.
I got 10 feet and went, holy crap, there's a lady under this couch.
This is
you know
not
what I mean?
supposed to be here.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be here, lady. You know what I mean? But you had to announce that. You know, we have a victim, and hey, I needed to do EMS with the person that I brought her out with. He started, I jumped in, needed to get those two guys in doing that, so we continued our job. And that comes down to that humility that you talked about there, right? I guess is a good word, right? Just make up a word, but it comes down to do your job.
Oh.
You know, I'm very fortunate that I work in a department, and I say this, it's department wide, but I'm going to always credit my shifts because we're the best shift on the job. You know, Gold Star shift works every day when we work 24/72. But when you get 4 companies that all understand their role, or at least the basis of their role, when those curveballs come in, they can adjust. And it doesn't mean everybody's going to adjust, but the majority of people will adjust to it. And I think when it comes to that task, staying on task, if you know your first task, you know your second task, when those curveballs come, you'll be able to perform any task.
Well, and the more that I study these 3 particular fires, mine being one of them, and I got a chance to review, just so happens I got videotape of all 3. I did not videotape my fire. Somebody else did. I just happened to grab it. And it's like reviewing these things and playing back in slow motion is when you come up against something that you had to deviate. I think we need to add it into our daily task drills, talking on a freaking microphone of your radio. I mean, it drives me insane because normally it sounds like, I think Pip's talking, but I mean, it just comes down to that saying, I mean, I made the announcement on the radio. We got heavy content because we had a room full of clutter. Shameless plug. Right? But I mean, it's like, but having that wherewithal or that situational awareness around you to say, hey, listen, we've got a variable, call the audible, and then the chief's got to be able to hear that, process it, and then reassign with it. And I don't think we practice talking enough. I know that sounds weird for me and you to say that, but I'm talking on the radio now.
It's definitely something we don't. You know, we do that Lego drill where you build a Lego in a different room with the instructions.
Which is great, but that's not a stressful environment. Like, let's build the Legos in a room full of fire with your fire gloves on. No.
Yeah, that's where it gets. And that comes down to just timing. I mean, look, I'm not going to lie. When I saw the lady, I was definitely screaming a bit, this last one, you know, where my rescue before that, I didn't scream. It's just things you have to overcome, but you also have to realize you're screaming and correct that, you know, and it's good too. I feel like as an officer, I want my guys to give me the feedback that I need. You know, I'm going to improve by them being like, yo, dude, did you have to yell at me when you said that? And I'm like, I was a little excited. Sorry about that. But I think about that now before I'm going to do it another time, you know, and it's funny. They make jokes.
Everybody's got jokes, right?
Everybody's got jokes, right? But there was something came up not too long ago on an extrication that I had a chance to yell at someone and I didn't. I spoke very monotoned to this person. And afterwards, they were all like, how come you didn't yell at that guy? Like, you yell at us. And I'm like, it's the new and improved Pip. I'm like, you guys didn't want me to yell, so I'm working on not. And now I don't yell, and I get yelled at. Go figure.
Maybe that's something we need to reach out to our great friend, Band Man, about that stressful situations, because he always teaches that operational mindset. But maybe it's when you need to take a few minutes before you, oh my gosh, there's somebody in here, Dad.
It's very challenging to do for sure.
Yes, because you feel the urgency of something going in like that. So, all right, Pip, we got to step aside to give a huge shout out to our title sponsor, Jumpseat Radio Podcast, Dingus Fire Company, trucks, tools, tradition. Check them on the web at dingusfire.com. You know, Nick's our boy.
I know where Nick is right now. Nick is in Queens, New York.
Shut up.
Picking up like 150,000 masks and like gallons of hand sanitizer and then driving it back to Illinois.
So he drove from Illinois to Queens.
13 hours, Illinois to Queens last night, 13 hours home.
Does he go right past your place in the process?
No, not for that trip. He came in more north. So he's like cutting across North Jersey from PA.
Man, that guy is like, he has a business. His business does have to make money to feed his family, but he sure does go above and beyond for the fire service.
Yeah. And, you know, when it comes to this, and we're totally digressing, but, you know, I'm fortunate to have made a lot of friends in business, the business of firefighting, the business of EMS. And what I think a lot of the Jumpseat listeners should probably hear is that these folks are all doing business differently these days.
They really are.
And they have channels that they could use to continue to move their business forward, let's say, or they could use to help with things like masks. You know, like Nick Dingus used to sell SCBA masks, for sure, we know that, but now he's selling face masks for hospital workers who need them. And he was able to use, he and a lot of other business people that I know were able to use their channels to help. And that's the same thing we're talking about here, Ryan.
Yep.
When someone throws you an audible at a fire or in business, if you're not able, they don't throw you an audible, they throw you a curveball.
You need to call the audible for the curveball.
Call the audible for the curveball. I'm not a sports guy anymore. I gave up on sports a long time ago. But they throw that curveball. You need to be ready to hit it, right? Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of these folks have done. And Nick and Dingus Fire, and it sucked. We had this awesome activation plan for FDIC, dude. It was going to be fun to watch. I don't think it was going to be fun for people to do, but I know the watching it was going to be hysterical.
I know that we're blowing him up here, Nick, and if you're listening, man, we appreciate you. He raised another $11,000 for another firefighter with cancer. That's awesome. Fantastic. Hey, we also got to give a huge shout out to our media sponsor, Chief Miller Media. Check him out on the Instagram at Chief_Miller. Chief Miller is a huge fan of the fire service. He highlights the good that we do around the world. Check him out on Instagram at Chief_Miller. All right, Pip. So let's give some takeaways.
Well, I got one more I want to talk about here because it's something that you started in on and I haven't gotten to chime in on yet. But
see, look, you're already a better host. You're already remember what's going on.
I'm trying, dude. I'm trying. I'm so trying to pick up on these little things. You don't want to leave. Echo Charles told me there's nanoseconds of silence, but you also don't want to miss opportunities. And that's what I'm kind of learning. I missed a big opportunity with AJ Fusco from Fork and Hose on episode 2.
Right.
This recent episode I did with the 555 team, and it's crazy. I was able to circle back to it.
Boom.
And I was excited about that. So anyway, so something you said before is, you're reviewing 3 fires. You're reviewing your fire and 2 others. I don't know where they're from or whatever, but
somewhere in the United States.
There is a wealth of knowledge on YouTube of what we call on my shift firefighting gone badly, where we basically are critiquing other people's fires. Some of which, as you watch, you're like, I don't know what's going on there. And you try to figure out what they're doing. But what is that really doing for you? That's making you a better firefighter. I've seen some from some places, let's say in the southern Midwest, where the engine pulls up and they take a fan off first and put it in a door and fire goes everywhere every time. But
man, the thing about that is they don't have compartmentalized houses like you do. Exactly. And they know how to use it. But that one
we're not doing it, right? But we're not doing it, but you learn things from it, right? You learn things watching. I think people teach about reading smoke. Oh, reading smoke. Yeah, it's very important. But watch a video of one of these like suburban house fires that the neighbor started videoing, the second they realized there was a fire and there's no engine companies there. You can watch the progression of that fire grow and grow and grow and grow. And I'm like, well, this is what happens, folks. Like, this is it. And you have a timeline, which really helps in that educational thing, and again, it's not to bash other people, but you see how fast, oh my God, why didn't they get water on the fire yet? You'll hear that engine screaming, and a rookie's like, why is the engine screaming? And you're like, because the guy doesn't know how to pump it. Like, this is the proof, but you can learn from it. And I really
that's the thing we need to take from it, though, Pip. We really do. I mean, it's just sooner or later you're going to be that person.
See, you're going to be there. Oh, dude, listen, I've been there. I'm happy some fires I was at haven't made it to a video yet, and I'm happy some other ones did. But when people talk about realistic training, look, we can't do it. Can't do realistic training. The fire academy is just never going to be realistic. It's the basics. You can definitely learn things while you're there, but it's not going to be that. So why not sit and watch a fire and just talk about it? And I'm a big believer in the arrival process.
if you watch whoever your football team is, I'll watch the Steelers. If you watch the Steelers, the most organized time they ever have is when they leave the huddle. Why? Because they huddle all the time.
Yep.
And I think that's the one, in Ryan's opinion, and you're listening to Ryan's podcast, so I get to give you my opinion. That is the
Shut
one.
Up and listen.
Yeah, right. But that is the one time you should never screw up, because if you have done it repeatedly over a 20-year career, and if you screw up, arrival, layout, throw ladders, give size up. Arrival, layout, throw ladders, size up. Arrival, layout, because you ought to be getting sets and reps back in your firehouse. Because the only thing you need is a parking lot.
Yep.
And I mean, getting dressed with your mask on and your radio hanging out and everything buttoned up. I mean, I tell you, when I made captain, I got put in the busiest house on the truck company. Truck company makes all box alarms or automatic fire alarms citywide. When I first got there, I hadn't been putting my gear on as much. I was like, "Ooh, wow, I suck at this." And it's like my guys are like, "Hey, Chubby, you gonna make us fire with us?" So it's like making 15 runs a day, putting your turnout gear on. It sucks. It does. It sucks. But
very much so.
But let me tell you what. Now, fast forward 2 months later, and I went back worked to my old company. I was looking at them, I was like, "Hey, Chubbies, what's y'all's problems? You all are like 13
You're sitting
years
in the
old.
engine. You're sitting in the engine, and there's nobody on there with you. You're like, where the hell is everybody?
Y'all gonna make us run with me? Because I've been sitting there for like a half an hour."
See, look, though, we could take that to a whole new level, too, because, again, the internet is the internet, but you see folks, and it's like, oh, look at how fast I put my gear on. I don't care how fast you put your gear on. I just want it on right in a good amount of time. You know what I mean? Like, you need to do all the steps well. Never going to do them all perfect. You do them all really well and be proficient at them. You know, like pulling up on scene as a first due engine, pulling past the building. That's what we do. My department runs 200-foot, 1 3/4 pre-connects off the back. There are first due lines for most fires. And it's been that way. We used to have a 300 and back there, but we abandoned the 300 because we have different plans now, let's say. Those 200s work really well. They work really well if the driver pulls past. If the driver shorts and doesn't have an excuse for shorting, it's a bit of a pain in the ass with those lines off the back just because of where you have to swing them to.
Right.
It's a bit of a pain in the ass if the driver shorts and the truck has to get around them now on a very narrow street. So they need a reason to short. If they have a reason, then they're good to go. But if it's just, I didn't know what to do.
I just felt that parking right here.
Yeah.
So we got a new terminology today on Jumpseat Radio Podcast. Hey, yo, don't short me. I like that.
Dude, don't short the. Oh no, you can't short the building, and especially we have a mid-mount truck.
Right.
So when we have exposure problems on both sides, we actually need to pull past the delta exposure too. Let's say we have to pull past the exposure in a way, just so that depending on how the operator has to turn out the truck, we can get that swing. Because there is nothing worse than being on the truck and hearing the alarm starting to go off, and the next building's on fire. And you're like, and there's your alarm. And now you're like, we can either go up and shoot. And hopefully this gets online. I'm using my hand to describe the truck. We can either go up and shoot down, or we can go out and shoot over, or we could crush the cab with a ladder, which is a really bad dude. Right. So, and the alarm just keeps going off. And so you're like, it's just one more annoyance. So those things are really important. And talking about them in training is key. And then doing them, practice them. Hey, let's pull up to this building. We pulled past, you pull, you hit the front. We do it on structure fires really well. We don't always do it so much on activated alarms as well as we should, but
see that's the one thing I'm a big fan of Nick Martin's for. And it's like my current crew on the ladder company is we go ladder buildings during AFAs. I mean, it's nothing. It's like, and the chauffeur of the truck, he knows the buildings. He's like, if the captain doesn't call out where the alarm is sounding, he gets mad because it's like, well, it's apartment 13 on 213 on second floor. Truck goes to where 213 is. We get set up, at least positioned. Use those AFAs to get that positioning down. I mean, that's what Nick Martin talks about, and I'm a huge Nick Martin fan. Don't park at AFAs, position at them.
And teach. If you're sitting there, if you're third due at an AFA, and you're just sitting there, I mean, you can talk about the building, you can talk about the neighborhood. I feel like I have a really senior driver. And we've worked together my whole career pretty much at one point or another some way. So we've been on a lot of stuff together, and we're like, remember when we had this here? And I'm like, no, we had a fire in that house. And he's like, yeah, remember? And he tells a story. And I'm like, oh yeah, but we can tell the two junior people in the back about that while we're just sitting around.
Well, and it helps to get the senior people to review it too, as well.
Yeah. Oh, dude, when you're like, when you think about yourself, like when it's like, dude, I had like 5 years on a job when that happened.
Right.
I was like, man, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, or like,
especially as you get older and you start forgetting things.
Yes, that will happen, kids. Jumpseat kids, you out there listening or watching, I don't know what your demographic is exactly, but if you guys they tell you when you join the fire service, it's going to go by in a blink of an eye.
It does. My gosh, it does. So my wife's up for a new vehicle. We're trying to get Allison a new car. And to do that, we got to get Heather a new vehicle. We'll cycle down Heather's car to her. And she's like, we're looking at financing options. Like, I'm not going to buy that. She's like, why? It's like, because I will be still paying for that thing when I am retired. And it's not that I have that long till I'm available to go to retirement. That's the scary part. I mean, you're talking within 6 years, I'm eligible.
And I think too, though, with all that time too, with all that time, and here we are saying it, we still make mistakes, man.
Oh, dude, if you have any idea.
The game changes. That's been my biggest thing with the pandemic at work. I'm like, guys, every time we come here, it's going to be different. Yep. And I'm sorry. It's not even a fun different, dude.
Nope.
It's a horrible different each time. They keep taking things away from us. I'm off today. I should be working today. I'm on vacation. But I think we finally come to like, they're not going to take anything else away from us. And we've turned that corner. But it's all to keep us safe. But we have to do that. We have to adapt and overcome because we have a job to do. And I think fortunately in my area, I've seen that happen more often than not. People have adapted. They've overcome. I mean, our friends in Passaic yesterday had a huge taxpayer type building, right? Yeah, it went to three alarms. There's people coming down ladders. There's chiefs with white helmets on climbing ladders to get people out of windows. I mean, they had a lot going on, but they did, from what I understand, a really good job of it. And that's it, because the job's still going to happen.
Yeah, and if anybody knows about our buddies up in Passaic, that city is packed and stacked and racked. That place is, I mean, they are buildings next to buildings, next to buildings, next to live chicken buildings in the middle of town. That was unique.
Welcome to the Northeast. That's easy. I mean, look, it's that too. It's like what we talked about in the beginning, to bring it back a little bit, if I go more north from here into Worcester and Boston, I mean, that's a totally different type of firefighting those guys got to do because they got, what do they call them? Triple deckers.
Got the triple deckers, Kay.
But they're everywhere.
Wicked five.
We have a few triple deckers here and there, the same way that those are everywhere. If I go south of me on the East Coast into Baltimore or Philly, it's all row housing.
Middle rows.
I mean, if you're on Instagram and what is that, truck BX, Baltimore County 9 or whatever that thing is, I'm like, these guys go to the same fire. Every day, it's the same fire. I think they just keep showing a loop of the same 12 buildings on fire, and we don't believe it that it's the same loop.
But they're all like that.
They're all like that, yeah. I mean, and I'm not trying to make fun of those guys. They do go to a lot of jobs, and it's just their buildings are the same. You see that in places, and those are things we can learn from because I have row housing, not as much as them, so I don't go to fires. I went to one fire in a row, and guess what we did?
And burn it down.
Lost the row, just like that.
All right, Pip. I got to come up with a name for this podcast. And can it be "Don't Short Yourself" with Robert Piparo?
It's a short joke. You see what I did there? Don't short yourself. Don't short me, bro. That's what you can call it. Don't short me, bro. Don't short me, bro.
There you go. Don't short me, bro.
Building, man.
All right, bro. As always, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you jumping on Jumpseat Radio Podcast. I kind of been down in the blah blah blahs lately because it's easy to get when you're stuck inside the house. We haven't ran a fire in 3 shifts, which sucks.
I'm not even going to tell you what our calls are doing right now, but I should probably invite you to come on the size up too. I guess it's probably time we switch the platform. We could just change shirts and record one right now, but I'm not missing the Blue Angels. So we're going to have to do that another day because we got to come in an hour here.
If they want to find you on the size up, where can you find that at?
Yeah. So the size up is on YouTube at the size up at NFR, the size up. I'm on National Fire Radio's YouTube as well with a few episodes. On Instagram, you could find us. It's at _size_up. And you could always find me on Instagram at 555pip. And make sure you check out at 555 Fitness. We got some cool stuff coming up with some live workouts. We did suspend the grant program. However, we are getting ready to ramp that back up again, give out some equipment, and then open up for the next grant in another month or so to get the second one going for the year. Yeah, we definitely put things on pause there, but we still put out workouts every day. You know, it was just hard with like we talked about before with business, getting the fitness equipment and getting it to where it had to go.
Right.
You know, there were people were shipping a lot more important stuff than fitness equipment at the moment. Not that it's not important, but do body weight workouts. I think I said that early on in the podcast. I'm like, do a lot of burpees. That's what you're going to do for the next month.
All right, Pip, thanks for coming on Jumpseat Radio number, I have no idea. We're in the 120 somethings.
That's so awesome, dude. It's awesome. Like, what number was I on? Like, what was my first episode? You have to go back and check.
Let's see if I can go back and look. I think
like it was I don't even know. And that was weird because we really didn't know each other too well then. So probably if you listen to that one and then listen to this one, it's a totally different ball game.
Yeah.
When it comes to it. But it was early. 124
is this one.
Nice.
And I think you were down in the 50s. Maybe.
Really? I thought a little earlier than that, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I've done so many with you now. It's kind of like, whatever, man. They're just numbers. And it's cool that people go back and listen to old ones too.
That blows my mind.
It's pretty awesome because you can pick up. But it's just like going back and watching an old YouTube video. I mean, we've watched some of the same firefighting gotten badly videos a few times, and we're like, oh, it's this one again. There's the guy who puts his helmet on backwards. You know what I mean? But like, you pick up different things each time you do it. You know?
Yep.
Don't you know?
I can't find it. I can't even find where you're at.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
If anybody can find that, hit us up on the social media. Say, here is Pip's first one that came out.
I remember Pip's first one. It was so cool. I don't even know what we talked about. We talked about something. We probably working out. Cool. All right, man. Thanks for having me, man. You stay safe, stay healthy, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
What was what we say the name of this episode was?
Don't short me, bro.
Don't short me, bro. You've been listening to Jumpseat Radio podcast number 124. Don't short me, bro. Make sure to follow us along on all the social media platforms and Instagram at Jumpseat Views. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/views in the Jumpseat. Head on over to the Twitter at Jumpseat Views. And we're doing a live event May 16th. Head on over to jumpseattraining.com. Get yourself signed up. It's going to rock. Maybe we can talk Pip and doing a stop by and give it a little
aggressively positive.
We're going to get aggressively positive May 16th.
Do burpees.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week. See ya.